Hi, my name is Dr. Catherine Hughes from Crime Psych. I'm a criminal psychologist and I run a business that enables me to bring knowledge and learning to everyone, not just those who are studying at universities or colleges. And I do this by producing a range of blogs, vlogs and free online courses. But I also run some slightly more in-depth courses, both online and face-to-face. You don't need any previous qualifications to learn with me, and there are several different subjects available. So once you've finished watching this video, head on over to my website to see if you can make it to an event or learn online in your own time. This particular video is looking at domestic abuse in the lesbian, bisexual, gay and transgender community. It is a serious issue. However, there needs to be more awareness and a discussion about some of the specific challenges that this creates. About 25% of LGBTQ people suffer through violent or threatening relationships with partners or ex-partners, which is about at the same rate as domestic abuse between heterosexual couples. However, understanding the prevalence can be difficult due to a variety of different factors. Research in this area has found that those from LGBTQ communities have specific and common fears about domestic abuse being reported and discussed. Many have said that they fear discussing intimate partner violence because it may be used to stigmatise the community even further. There are many parallels between LGBTQ people's experience of domestic abuse and that of heterosexual couples, including the impact that the abused partner has and as well the effects that the abusive partner can inflict. Of course, we know that there are different types of domestic abuse, such as emotional bullying, physical aggression, threats to harm or threats to kill, social isolation, control of finances, extreme jealousy. All of these aspects are not exclusive to any particular gender and have the same impact on the victim. Domestic abuse can take many forms. This can be a behavioural issue rather than a gender issue. As I mentioned in my video about men experiencing domestic abuse, there are numerous reasons why domestic violence and abuse isn't reported by both men and women. And these include a fear of retaliation or a lack of trust or confidence in the police. The issue of underreporting is even more pronounced amongst men because of fear of appearing unmanly, feelings of shame, embarrassment, or even a failure to live up to masculine ideals within society. This can happen to anyone, and anyone can become an abuser. We should never be complacent about gender stereotypes, especially when it comes to issues such as domestic abuse and rape. When it comes to behaviour of any kind, we can and should be removing any gender and sexuality biases. Men can be raped, women can be abusers, men can have mental health problems and women can be violent. In Western cultures, we have culturally created ideologies about masculinity and femininity, and these may discourage victims from openly discussing their experience. Some still believe that homosexual men are less masculine than heterosexual men, or that women abusers cause less harm because they're not as physically strong as men. A particularly harmful myth that's often stated is that violence by one man inflicted on another man is considered a mutual conflict because they can so-called fight equally. Studies carried out between 2001 and even as late as 2012 have highlighted that bisexual people were doubly marginalised, not being recognised in the lesbian and gay community and simultaneously being stigmatised by heterosexuals. Davidson and Duke, two researchers in 2009, showed that bisexual people were victims of the law system and the services to the same extent as any other. Moreover, studies showed that biphobia within the LGB community increased the risk of intimate partner violence between bisexual partners and simultaneously reduced help-giving resources. However, there are a number of aspects to domestic abuse that are unique to LGBTQ domestic abuse. The abuser may threaten to out their victim to family, friends, religious communities, co-workers, or even any other people as a method of controlling their victim. The abuser may use the close-knit dynamic of the gay and lesbian community and the lack of support for LGBTQ people outside of that community to further pressure the victim into compliance. For many people, their sexual orientation or gender identity becomes associated with the abuse, so that they blame the abuse on being lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender. So they may feel that they're experiencing this abuse because they're a lesbian, because they're a gay, because they're bisexual or transgender. They may believe that if they weren't part of the gay, lesbian, bisexual or transgender communities, that they wouldn't be suffering through their experiences. LGBTQ communities are often hidden and can rely on friends and relationships as support within the local community. This is often compounded when living in smaller towns or in rural areas, and it can make it difficult for the abused partner to seek help. They may feel ashamed about the abuse, or their partner may have tried to turn others in their community against them. An abusive partner may isolate their partner from contact with the LGBTQ community by preventing them from reading any magazines, newspapers, etc., or attending venues or events, or preventing them from seeing family or friends within the community. This can be especially true for people in their first same-sex relationship who may not have had as much contact with the LGBT community before that relationship began. These are individuals from a minority community. Historically, homosexuals have been persecuted because of their sexual orientation. This may make speaking out against abuse within these relationships more difficult because it may lead to further persecution. Thousands of homosexual people have experienced abuse and exclusion already in their life. Even as little as 40 years ago, homophobia was rife throughout society. These prejudices can be resistant to change, especially if there are others surrounding those people who validate their thoughts and feelings. I suspect that even today, most homosexual people can say that they've seen or experienced homophobia or prejudice of some kind. Unfortunately, these prejudices don't simply go away because of the job that the person holds. This can lead to police, support workers, call takers, call staff, doctors, and a host of other occupations to treat LGBTQ victims of domestic abuse differently. A researcher named Gill suggested in 2013 that the higher prevalence rate of HIV in this community also constituted an additional important difference in their experience of intimate partner violence. HIV positive victims may not leave abusive relationships because of fear of becoming sick and dying alone, or of dating in the context of having that disease. If it's the aggressor who has HIV, the victims may stay because they don't want to abandon their sick partners. Issues surrounding HIV can, of course, be prevalent in heterosexual relationships as well. However, it has been argued in the literature that the LGBTQ community are more affected by it. Domestic abuse in these relationships is underreported and often not acknowledged, not treated. Even if it is reported, it's not dealt with in the same way as abuse in heterosexual relationships. I think one of the possible reasons for this is the lack of discourse in mainstream media. It's only in the last 5 years or so that schools have started teaching students about relationships beyond the biology of it. If I were to have come out as a lesbian at 16, I'm not sure I would know what a normal lesbian relationship was meant to be like. Take these two hypothetical scenarios as an example. Jenny lives with her mother and father in a leafy suburb in a small community. Mum and dad have been married for 30 years and have a healthy, loving relationship. Jenny knows what a healthy relationship should and does look like because she's been brought up in that context. She also knows what an unhealthy relationship looks like because she's heard that Mr. Smith had beaten his wife and has been arrested. So in scenario 1, Jenny meets a man and has a set of expectations that need to be fulfilled. But in scenario 2, Jenny moves to London and is introduced to the gay scene. She has no idea what these kinds of relationships are normally like. She has no sense of what's right or wrong in this novel context. A woman could be controlling and demanding in their relationship, and she doesn't know that this is not how it normally is or not how it should be. Because of the general homophobia and transphobia within modern societies, LGBTQ victims of partner violence may be concerned about giving gay and lesbian relationships a bad name and may refuse to speak up about any abuse that they're suffering. When people do seek help, people and other agencies may misunderstand the situation as a fight between two men or two women rather than a violent, intimate relationship. And therefore, LGBTQ people may be discouraged from disclosing if service providers use language which reflects heterosexual assumptions. For example, if a woman calls a domestic abuse helpline and the language of the call taker assumes that the partner is male. If her abuser is a woman, she might not feel that she's able to disclose that it's actually a female or that it doesn't even count. If we want our younger generation to be safe and less risk of domestic abuse, we have a responsibility to discuss all types of relationships. It is still a taboo for many men to speak out if they're abused by a female aggressor. The LGBTQ community are already a marginalised group within society and already face many prejudices. Therefore, we need to put time, effort and resources into researching domestic abuse in this context. The majority of research surrounding domestic abuse is based on heterosexual couples. The LGBT community does face specific and unique challenges when it comes to domestic abuse or intimate partner violence. We need more awareness and an open discussion if we've got any hope of protecting these vulnerable people in future. Domestic abuse has no gender. Domestic abuse has no sexual orientation. Domestic abuse is not age specific. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Keep talking, spread awareness and look after each other. Bye for now.